Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This is County Executive Pat Ryan. Happy Tuesday and welcome to our latest update here on COVID-19 in Ulster County. It's another beautiful day. I hope if you've had a chance to get outside and just breathe in some of that great spring weather safely, of course. But it is a really awesome day, and I hope everybody's been able to enjoy it as much as possible. We will jump right into some of the public health updates and then cover some of our economic resilience plan updates and then get moving on with our day. So to start with the data, overall top line in Ulster County, things are continue to trend in a very positive direction. Really at this point, all of the indicators in terms of public health data are looking good and continuing to improve, and that is a credit to everyone in the community who's been doing their part to affect that. We are at 1,615 total cumulative positive cases out of just shy of 11,000 tested. That's still right around that 15-16% number. We've had, unfortunately, now 69 fatalities and 877 recovered. I think, and we'll talk about this in a second on another slide, but one of the most encouraging data points to me is we now have more residents of Ulster County that have recovered from COVID than are positive. And that was a dynamic that we hit last week as another good sign of progress. If you look at the projections out on this graph, again, we continue to be towards the best case, which would have us at 1,700, 10 days out. And so that rate of increase is really continuing to go down, and we're seeing that curve continue to flatten of even cumulative numbers. A much more clear graph to show where we're at is hospitalizations in the county. We continue to see this number go down. We had a small sort of aberration of an increase last week, but we are now down to 9 individuals hospitalized, 0 of whom are in an ICU or on a ventilator. And you can see in this graph a very clear downward trend continuing. And this is actually the moving average, so a 3-day average, but a very clear downward trend of hospitalizations, and fatalities remain flat or downward trending as well. In terms of the active cases, so again, this is something we updated on our dashboard last week to help people understand that while the total cumulative number has no direction to go but up, that will always go up as we test more people. We've had now 877 residents who have had were COVID positive and have recovered. And so only 669 residents right now are still COVID positive in some form of working towards that recovery. And we continue to see that us on the downslope side of that curve, which is encouraging as well. And the final graph here is the one that we've shown now for about a week, 10 days, which shows the number of new positive cases each day. One thing I really want to draw your attention to here for the data nerds watching, on the far right-hand side of this graph, you see a big spike in blue there over the last week. That's the number of tests that we're conducting in the county. And we have never tested more people than we did in the last week. A lot of that was actually driven by our senior facility testing. But overall, we're just seeing very high numbers of tests. And yet, even with much more testing happening, the number of positives continues to go down. So that is the right direction for both of those numbers, and you can see that here on the graph. The orange line really shows you that we are now well past the peak and have stabilized at a much lower level of new positive cases. And then finally, in terms of public health data, the hospital capacity numbers, another key metric to make sure we can reopen safely. As I mentioned, we are now at 9 Ulster County beds occupied by COVID-19 patients. We were at 11 last week, so we're seeing that continue to slowly go down. More good news, and we have more than sufficient need for the near term and beyond in terms of capacity. And I do just want to take a minute to recognize that about probably a month ago, I've sort of lost some track of time, but a month ago, I was warning that we were on a trajectory where we were concerned we were going to run out of capacity in terms of beds, ventilators, ICUs. We were planning for and building contingency facilities. So it really is very good news to see how far we've come from that point. And I feel confident that we're going to continue to head that direction as long as folks continue to follow all the protocols. Even as we begin to reopen, there will still be critical public health protocols that we'll need everybody to follow. So shifting into that discussion about while we continue to monitor and work the public health aspects, now how do we get the economy going again carefully and responsibly? We've now been planning and thinking about this for weeks. We continue to make progress towards the state metrics in that regard. We again updated our county dashboard last week. If you go onto our website, ulstercountyny.gov, you can see the Ulster County numbers. We have met 7 of the 7 metrics for reopening, and the regional numbers, we have met 5 of the 7 metrics for reopening and are continuing to work towards that progress as a region. In the interim, even while we wait, and I know many business owners watching and out there are anxiously waiting the ability to start gradually and safely opening again, what we have been able to do is a series of discussions with our business owners to help them begin the planning process. And basically each business will build a what's called a business safety plan. So every single business in the county, which we have over 7,000 of, will be developing in somewhat guided by the state and by our county health department. They will be developing these business safety plans that will help them in each phase reopen and conduct business safely and as responsibly as possible. So we've had many discussions now with those businesses. They are all working on those business safety plans. We're helping them. And actually just this morning, I had a great call with our Zoom call, I guess, with our Ulster County Chamber of Commerce members, hundreds of businesses on the line there. And I announced that we had stood up something we talked about a few weeks ago, a reopening support team. So this is basically from our economic development office, a group of individuals that are going to work hand in hand with every business to help them navigate through what is, I know, a very complex and cumbersome process of building those plans and getting approval from the state to get going again responsibly. So that is happening as part of our overall economic resilience plan for the county. And just as a reminder, there are really 3 components to that. There's recovery, reopening, and realignment. And all that work that I talked about is really in the reopen portion of what we're talking about in terms of those reopening support teams. Some other updates, though, on our economic resilience plan and our progress towards getting things going and helping the whole community recover. I wanted to talk a little bit more about what's happening with our recovery task force. And as a reminder, I know there's a lot of different things happening. The Recovery Task Force is a group of community leaders, government leaders, and not-for-profit leaders, religious leaders, educators, who have come together and started the work to say, okay, what are the most urgent and pressing needs of our community across the board, from dealing with addiction and mental health needs to housing needs and housing insecurity, food needs and food insecurity. What are the needs of our youth and young people, both now and in the long term? And so we're working through all of those efforts as part of our Ulster County Recovery Task Force. Some of the big priorities have been opioid prevention, mental health, housing, and we've taken a series of steps here already. And I want to talk again actually about housing, because this issue keeps coming up as really one of the 2 most pressing needs we're hearing across the board in the county. The tremendous pressure that our families and workers and really everyone is under are food need and food insecurity, and the need for shelter and housing insecurity. Of course, really two of the most basic just human needs for everyone, and those are being stretched beyond, and there's pressure beyond what's happened in quite a long time. And I talked last week about this idea that frontline workers who are literally putting their lives on the line for us are now increasingly in a situation where they can't even afford a decent place to live in their own community, where by day they're going out and putting their life on the line, and then they're coming home and worried about paying the bills. And that's not just unique to them. There's so many families in that situation. But we have to go beyond just saying thank you to our frontline workers and making sure we take the active steps to have, whether it's our grocery store clerks, our healthcare workers, our postal workers, our delivery folks, all of those people that we thank every day. We have to go beyond just the words and take those actions. So that is what we're going to continue to do here in Ulster County. And I talked last week about some of the things that we were going to be doing in this front, and I want to give a little more detail on what some of those initiatives are. So we'll put some of them up on a slide here, and I'll talk through ultimately 4 positive, substantive steps to address the housing need. We've already talked about our tenant protection unit, which has been up and running for well over a month now, and has now helped, I think, well over 100 individual tenants who are under pressure for eviction or being pressured out of their home by a landlord. In addition to that, 4 new initiatives that we're excited about. Number one, thanks to our team here in our planning department, we were able to repurpose some federal funding for housing need and repurpose it to specifically set up a fund of $150,000 that will help as many families as we possibly can who are struggling to pay rent. Obviously, that's not enough to help everybody, and I recognize that, but we think we'll be able to help dozens of families in dire need of some rent relief. And so we've got that approval to repurpose those funds. That will be up and running shortly, and we'll be working with community leaders to identify where the greatest need is there. And we hope we'll be able to obviously identify more funds for that in the near future. Secondly, and this is sort of a longer term initiative, but I think the urgency is clear. We think there's an opportunity, and the county legislature tonight will be considering a resolution that we've put forth to expand the jurisdiction of the city of Kingston Land Bank to envision ultimately getting towards something that would serve the whole county. That is something that will take some time, but that would really help us address what is a critical need for more housing inventory and being able to convert properties and get them ready to be back for use for individuals that desperately need affordable places to live. Third, it's kind of complementary to this, but separate. I've directed our county planning department to look at county-owned properties and pieces of land that could also be put to use for the development of housing for our frontline workers and all of our working people and families in the community. We know a lack of housing inventory is one of the biggest drivers of unaffordability for everybody across the spectrum, and so we know we need to build more housing. And I'll be also engaging with our town and city and village leaders to ask their support to do the same at their level, and we'll be doing that at the county level. And then finally, in coordination again with our county legislature, we'll be commissioning a study to examine specifically what the COVID-19 impact has been on housing. We know, and I've talked about, that there was already a major problem here pre-COVID, and we have some sense anecdotally that it's gotten worse under the pressures of COVID-19, but we really want to have the data and the facts to back that up and really understand how has this played out across the county. Are there opportunities to address it, and even just to really wrap our head around the need. Ultimately, that will result in an action plan, not just a study to study for study's sake, but an action plan to build on some of these actions that I just talked through, and recognize that we need to move quickly on these urgent needs for housing for all of our residents under pressure. So this is something that I'm very excited about, and that I've heard a lot of folks concerned about long before COVID, in the town halls that I did do in 2019 and into early 2020, back in the days when I was able to meet people face to face, which I really, really miss. This was an issue that came up everywhere in every town, all the 24 municipalities of the county. So I'm very excited to work on this, and this will be a priority that will carry through for many years, I know, but we don't have many years to get at least some immediate relief going. Finally, want to update everybody on Project Resilience. One of the definitely highlights of my week last week was on, I think it was Friday afternoon, we held a Zoom call with all of the, well, not all, but many of the restaurants, volunteers, and town and municipal leaders that have been really powering our Project Resilience over the last 2 months. And we got as many people as we could all on the line. We had some in groups socially distanced on the line. I think we had 20 or 30 people set up at the Kingston YMCA. We had folks all across the county dialed in, and we just shared some of the stories and some of the impact that Project Resilience has had beyond the numbers, which are, you know, really impressive and a credit to that whole team, but just some of the individual stories that people who were delivering meals heard, people who were preparing meals heard, even the morale boost for the restaurant staff, the restaurants that were participating. They said that members of their restaurant staff just felt good about the fact that they were able to not only have maintain their job, but to actually contribute to the huge need for food in our county. And when you look around the state and the country, and you continue to hear stories about miles-long lines at food banks that have been set up, and more need than can be met, I really am just proud of what we've done here, and recognize that we did build and are running something really special. And in numbers-wise, we've now crossed another important milestone. We have delivered and provided now 209,714 to be exact meals, at least as of this morning, through Project Resilience to thousands of households across Ulster County in need. So again, I just want to thank everybody for your work on that. And as we shift that into phase 2, we know that there will be some transition there, and we're committed to making sure that ultimately no one in the county is hungry, and no one feels that they can't raise their hand and say, I need some help right now, because we do have the ability to help you in that regard, and no one should feel that is not an option, or that they don't have a place to turn. So please reach out to us if you're in that situation, or you know someone who may not be able to or willing to come forward. You can always call our COVID-19 hotline for those kinds of issues, or any COVID issues that you're having. That is 845-443-8888. You can also go on our website, ulstercountyny.gov. We even have a really cool online chat feature that's really helped a lot of folks get quick answers to some of the more routine questions. And then we have our fantastic staff and volunteers that are manning those lines as well to speak with you. And then finally, as we wrap up, and hopefully again enjoy what is a gorgeous spring day here in Ulster County, I just want to thank each of you and all of those that continue to work on the front lines of this. And you can see the list on your screen. And as I always say, this is not exhaustive. And what I think we need to recognize, this list is really going to ultimately grow to all of us as we begin to shift from a mode of what was a far-reaching kind of lockdown that was necessary to get control of this thing, we're going to ask more and more people to start going back to work. And I know for many folks that's very scary and anxiety provoking, and I get that, and I totally understand that. And that's why we're putting so much effort into these, working with all of our businesses and making sure they have the resources to set up these business safety plans so that workers feel that the work environment they're going back to is safe, and so that customers feel that they can go frequent a business and not put themselves or their family or their loved ones at risk. I mean, the whole reopening is only going to work if everyone has confidence that everyone is in this and is going to play their part in the same way that you all have been playing your part. So, my closing message is, of course, thank you to all those frontline workers, but thank you to all of you too, and thank you in advance, because your continued willingness and commitment to, as we start getting things going, which I do think will happen in the coming days and at longest next few weeks, when we will hit phase 1 in the region, we're going to need every single person not to let off or let up on wearing masks and maintaining that distance and washing hands and being thoughtful. But you're actually going to have to redouble your efforts to do all those things and to be thoughtful about the fact that more people are out now. And it's even more important that you do your part to maintain the health of the whole community. If there's anything that's come out of this, we know that we all count on each other and we are all connected, and what one person does in many dimensions affects all of us. And so we just have to remind each other of that as we go forward. And I hope that that same spirit we had in the opening, sort of days and weeks of this, where we really felt that we were all in this and we recognize that connectivity, we can't let that fade away. And that's going to take each of us reminding each other of that role as, of course you're an individual, and of course you're a member of a family or a business, but you're a member of this community, and that comes with some responsibility to think about everybody else. So I will keep reminding you of that as well, and appreciate everyone's, your patience, your commitment to this community, and your resilience. And we will end it there. Thank you very much. Thanks, Radio Kingston. Thank you to our interpreters, Diane, Roxanne, Manuel, translating to Spanish. If my wife, Rebecca, or Theo are watching, hi guys, I miss you, and I will see you later. Everybody have a great day. Thanks.